I returned from Canada to find my $2 million house hijacked and my wife scrubbing floors like a servant. My own daughter kicked me out, but she forgot one thing. I designed this house, and I know exactly how to dismantle her lies. Before continuing, write where you are from or what time it is. I returned home after 2 weeks on a business trip in Canada, only to find my wife living like a servant in our own $2 million house that I bought. My daughter and son-in-law were living there like the real owners and didn't even recognize me. They kicked me out like a stranger. That very night, I called my lawyer. Time for justice. The key turned in the lock at 10:30 p.m., and I stepped into what should have been the quiet sanctuary of my Lake Otsego home. Instead, bass-heavy music rattled through the walls like a cheap nightclub. After 2 weeks consulting on a historical restoration project in Vancouver, I was exhausted. My architect's eye had spent 14 days examining century-old timber frames and crumbling stonework. All I wanted was my bed and maybe a decent scotch. The music was coming from upstairs, from my living room. I climbed the stairs slowly, my luggage forgotten by the door. The scene that greeted me belonged in someone else's house. A young couple sprawled across my Italian leather sofa, the one Wilma and I had saved 3 months to afford. Pizza boxes littered the coffee table I designed myself. Beer bottles sat sweating rings into the mahogany. The man noticed me first. He was maybe 40, soft around the middle, wearing a stained t-shirt that read, "I void warranties." His face twisted with instant aggression. "Who the hell are you?" he barked, lurching to his feet. "Get out of our house." Our house? The words hung in the air like smoke. The woman beside him barely glanced up. She was younger, 30-ish, with the kind of expensive haircut that screamed, "I'm worth it." Something about her face tugged at my memory, but jet lag made everything fuzzy. "This is my house," I said, keeping my voice level. 67 years had taught me that calm beats loud. "I'm Harold Parker. I own this property." The woman laughed. Actually laughed, a cruel sound that cut through the music. "Your house, old man. You've got the wrong address. This is our home. Maybe try the retirement community down the street." The man took a step toward me, his bulk meant to intimidate. "You heard her. Get lost before I call the cops for trespassing." I could have argued, could have pulled out my wallet, shown them my driver's license with this address. But something in their casual cruelty, the way they'd already dismissed me as senile and lost, made me turn away. I needed to understand what was happening here. I went back downstairs toward the kitchen. That's when I heard it. Quiet crying, barely audible under the pounding music. I followed the sound to what used to be the maid's room, a small space off the kitchen that we'd used for storage. The door was ajar. Inside, under a single dim bulb, my wife Wilma knelt on the floor with a bucket and scrub brush. Her gray hair hung limp around her face. Her hands, the hands that used to paint watercolors on Sunday mornings, were red and raw. She looked up when I entered, and the shock in her eyes told me everything. She hadn't expected me home. Worse, she looked terrified. "Harold," she whispered, glancing nervously toward the door. "You're early. You said next week." I finished the project ahead of schedule. I knelt beside her, ignoring the protest from my knees. "Wilma, what is this? Why are you on the floor? Who are those people?" Her eyes filled with tears. "It's Paula and Ian, her husband. They came to stay 6 weeks ago while you were in Seattle." "Just for a few weeks," she said. "Just until they found a new apartment." She twisted the rag in her hands. "But then they didn't leave. They started taking over rooms. First the guest room, then the master bedroom." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "Our bedroom?" She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. I tried to say something, but Paula said you wouldn't mind, that you were never here anyway, that I was being selfish. And Ian, She stopped, her voice dropping to barely a whisper. "He said if I didn't like it, I could leave, that this was their house now." Paula. The name finally clicked. The woman upstairs was my daughter. I hadn't recognized her immediately. I hadn't seen her in nearly 2 years, not since that Christmas dinner that ended in accusations about my absent parenting and her demands for money. "How long has this been going on?" I asked. 6 weeks, maybe 7. I lost count. She looked at the bucket of dirty water. "They have me cooking. cleaning, doing laundry. Ian leaves his dishes everywhere. Paula treats me like hired help. They don't even let me eat dinner with them. The cold in my chest spread outward, freezing my shock into something harder, something sharp. This wasn't just my daughter being inconsiderate. This was systematic, deliberate, cruel. "Get your things," I said quietly. "We're leaving." "But now, Wilma, we're going to a hotel." She hesitated, glancing at the door again like a frightened animal. That look, that fear in her eyes when she was in her own home, made my decision final. As we gathered her belongings from that tiny room, I could hear Paula and Ian laughing upstairs, laughing in my house, on my furniture, probably drinking my liquor. They hadn't just taken advantage of an old woman. They'd stolen her dignity. They'd stolen mine. We left through the back door, quiet as thieves in our own home. The irony wasn't lost on me. The Marriott in downtown Portland had vacancies. At 11:45 p.m., I checked us into a suite with 2 bedrooms, paying with a credit card that felt heavy. This was costing $280 a night, money Paula probably thought I didn't have. Wilma sat on the edge of the bed, still in shock. I ordered room service and waited for her to talk. The story came out in pieces. Paula had called 2 months ago. The rent was too high. Just a few weeks, she'd promised. Wilma had agreed without telling me. I'd been in Portland for 3 days between projects, barely home long enough to do laundry. "She said you wouldn't care," Wilma repeated, hands wrapped around untouched tea. "That you were always traveling anyway, that the house was too big for just me. I thought maybe it would be nice to have company. When did it change?" After the first week, Paula started redecorating, moving my things to the basement. Then Ian took over your office. I was making dinner one night, and Ian told me to eat in the kitchen, said they were having friends over and didn't want me around. I watched my wife of 43 years break down in a hotel room because her own daughter had made her feel like an intruder. I'd spent decades designing homes meant to shelter. I'd never imagined my own would become a prison. Did Paula explain why? She said you owed her, that you were never there when she was growing up, always at work. She said the house was compensation for missed birthdays and school plays, the guilt card Paula had played since 16. Yes, I'd worked long hours, but I'd built a successful firm, put her through college without loans, given her every advantage. Apparently none of that mattered. Ian threatened you? Not exactly, but he'd get loud. Stand too close. Comments about how I was just a guest in their house now, that I should be grateful they let me stay. She set down the tea. "Harold, I was scared. Paula said if I told you, they'd make sure I had nowhere to go, that you'd side with her anyway. The manipulation was expert. Isolate the victim, make her doubt herself, cut off support. I'd read about this kind of abuse, never imagining it could happen in my own home. By 2 a.m., Wilma had finally fallen asleep, exhausted from weeks of stress and tonight's escape. I sat in the suite's living area with my phone and notepad, sketching strategies instead of buildings. The architect in me couldn't help but see this as a structural problem. Every building had weaknesses. Every occupation had vulnerabilities. At 2:15 a.m., I called Gregory Walsh, my attorney for the past 15 years. He answered on the 4th ring, voice thick with sleep. "Greg, it's Harry Parker. I know it's late, but I have a problem. Harry, what's wrong? My daughter has taken over my house. She's been treating my wife like hired help for 6 weeks. I need my legal options and I need them now." Silence. Then I heard him sit up. The rustle of sheets. "Tell me everything." I did. The whole story, from finding Wilma scrubbing floors to Paula's mocking laughter, Ian's territorial aggression, 6 weeks of systematic degradation. Gregory listened without interrupting, and I could hear him taking notes. "This is clear-cut," he said finally. "They're trespassers. No lease, no written permission. You can evict them, but the process takes time. 30 to 60 days minimum, maybe longer if contested. That's too long." I stared at my notepad. Floor plans, electrical systems, building codes. "Greg, I spent 40 years designing buildings. I know every code, every regulation for residential safety in Oregon. What are you thinking? I'm thinking my house might have serious safety violations. Violations requiring immediate vacating for repairs." Pause. Then Gregory laughed. You want to use the building inspector's office among other things. Can you meet me tomorrow, 9 a.m.? I need to document everything first, but I want a clear legal strategy. I'll clear my schedule. Harry, are you sure about this? Your own daughter. I thought about Wilma's raw hands, her tears, her fear. She made her choice when she treated my wife like a servant, I said. Now she lives with mine. See you at 9 qual. I hung up and looked at my notes. Paula thought she'd won. She'd taken the house, broken her mother, assumed I'd either accept it or be too cowed to fight. She'd forgotten something. I'd spent my career solving structural problems, finding elegant solutions to complex challenges. This was just another problem, and I was very good at my job. Outside the window, Portland's lights glittered. Somewhere in Lake Oswego, my daughter slept in my bed, thinking she'd successfully driven me away. She'd soon learn that the man who built the house knew exactly how to dismantle the life she'd stolen within it. Gregory Walsh's office occupied the third floor of a converted brick building downtown. I arrived at 9 a.m. Sharp, Wilma waiting in a coffee shop down the street. Tell me you're exaggerating, Gregory said, extending his hand. We'd worked together 15 years, mostly contracts and property disputes. I wish I was. I sat across from his desk. My daughter has taken over my house. My wife is living like hired help. He pulled out a yellow legal pad. Do they have any legal claim? Any lease agreement? Nothing. Paula asked to stay a few weeks. That's it. Good. That makes them trespassers. But eviction takes time. 30 to 60 days minimum. Maybe longer if contested. He tapped his pen. First, we document everything. Photographs, timestamps, witnesses. Can you access the house without confrontation? Wilma has keys. They're at work during the day. Perfect. Go today. Take pictures of everything. He looked at me seriously. But don't take anything that's yours yet. We need to show the current state exactly as it is. By 11 a.m., Wilma and I stood on our doorstep, her hand shaking. The house was quiet, empty. The transformation hit harder in daylight. This was the house I designed 23 years ago. Now strangers lived here, my office first. The drafting table from architecture school was shoved against the wall, covered with Ian's computer equipment, cables everywhere, power strips overloaded, my books, my 40 years of work crammed into cardboard boxes. I started photographing every angle, every detail. This is a fire hazard, I said. Ian had daisy-chained 4 power strips into one outlet. These old houses weren't built for this load. Wilma stood in the doorway. He needed space for his gaming setup. I opened a box. My Frank Lloyd Wright collected works, spine cracked, pages water damaged. I'd carried that book through architecture school. Did they move these in the rain? Last week, Paula wanted the shelves for her clothes. I photographed the damaged book, then the whole stack. Every violation documented. The master bedroom was worse. Our bed held Paula and Ian's things. Our wedding photo was face down in a drawer. Wilma started crying. We're past tears, I said. Now we're gathering ammunition. I photographed everything. The dining room, my grandmother's china cabinet, empty. The living room, my Italian sofa stained with pizza grease, and the small room off the kitchen where Wilma slept. A twin mattress on the floor, a single lamp, her clothes in a plastic bin. This wasn't inconsiderate. This was systematic humiliation. How long has it been like this? 3 weeks, maybe 4. Wilma wiped her eyes. At first they just took the guest room. Then Paula said the master bedroom got better light for her makeup. Then Ian needed your office for his work setup. Then they needed the living room for entertaining friends. It kept happening so gradually, I didn't realize until there was nowhere left. I just kept moving, making myself smaller, thinking it was temporary. As I worked through the house, memories started surfacing. Fragments I dismissed at the time, too focused on work to see the pattern forming. Paula calling in July. Dad, can you lend me $3,000? The rent went up. I'd send it immediately, no questions asked. August. Dad, my car broke down. I need $2,000 for repairs. Done. Wired the same day. September, right before I left for Vancouver. Dad, our landlord is selling the building. Can we stay with you and Mom for a few weeks? And I'd said yes. Tell your mother it's fine, without even asking Wilma first, without thinking about what a few weeks might actually mean. Every time I just solved the problem with money or space, never questioning why a 38-year-old woman with a full-time job couldn't manage her own life. Never wondering why she always called me. Never Wilma. Because I'd been easy. I'd been absent. I'd been the bank that never said no. The father who could be guilted into anything. I thought about phone calls with Wilma over the past 6 weeks. How she'd been quieter each time. How she'd changed the subject when I asked about Paula. How she'd said, "Everything's fine, dear," in that tone that meant nothing was fine at all. I'd heard it. I'd ignored it because I had blueprints to review and consultations to prep and client meetings to attend, and it was easier to believe her than to actually come home and check on what was really happening. I should have seen this, I said. You were working. I was hiding from retirement, from slowing down, from being present. Paula knew exactly how to exploit it. By 2 p.m., I had over 200 photographs. Every room, every violation in the garage, empty spaces where my tools had been, my vintage architect's instruments collected over 40 years gone. Where are my tools? Wilma hesitated. Ian said he was taking them to be cleaned 2 weeks ago. I photographed the empty spaces, the dust outlines. My phone buzzed. Gregory, how's it going? Good. I've got what we need, but I think they've been selling my things. Pause. That's theft. Changes everything. Get me those photos ASAP, and Harry, don't confront them yet. I looked at Wilma. She seemed steadier now, reclaiming some fragment of territory. What happens now? She asked. Now we build the case. Then we take our house back. The next morning, September 18th, I returned at 7 a.m. Gregory wanted specific documents from my safe, and I needed to check something that had been nagging at me. The neighborhood was quiet, just sprinklers and early birds. I parked down the street, not wanting to alert Paula and Ian. That's when I saw Pete Anderson, my neighbor for 20 years, watering his roses by the fence. Pete was 70, retired from teaching, spent his days obsessing over his garden. Harry, he squinted, lowering his hose. Harry Parker, I thought you'd moved. I walked over. Moved? I've been traveling for work. Pete's face went through several expressions. Oh, that's interesting. The young couple living there told everyone you and Wilma relocated to Canada. Said you gave them the house. The sprinklers suddenly sounded very loud. They said what? Your daughter Paula, she and her husband told the whole neighborhood you retired up north. They even had a gathering last month, introduced themselves as the new owners. Pete looked distressed. If that's not true. It's not true, Pete. I own this house. Oh dear, there's more. They've been loading stuff from your garage into a truck. Furniture, tools. Said they were donating your old things since you didn't need them. My hands clenched. What kind of tools? Professional equipment. Those precision instruments you showed me once. The antique ones. $5,000 worth minimum. Some irreplaceable. Did they say where they were donating them? Pete shifted uncomfortably. I got the impression they were selling them. I heard Ian on his phone about vintage equipment and collector prices. I forced calm. Pete, if you remember anything else, would you tell me? There is one more thing. He lowered his voice. Steve from 2 doors down heard Ian say something about getting your wife to sign papers. Something like, another year and we'll have it official. The old lady will sign whatever we put in front of her. The cold turned to ice. He said that? Exactly that. Pretty close. I remember because it struck me as odd. Now it makes perfect sense. I looked at my house. They're not just staying rent-free. They're planning to steal it. Pete's face paled. You're serious? Dead serious. Pete, would you give a statement to my lawyer? Absolutely, Harry. I'm so sorry. You couldn't have known. But they forgot one thing. Architects understand structure, foundation, weight-bearing walls. We know exactly where to apply pressure to bring the whole thing down. I left Pete and went in through the back door. From upstairs, Paula's voice, snippy. Ian, I said I want breakfast before I leave. Ian's response was muffled but irritated. I moved to my office, opened the safe behind a false panel I'd installed. Original deed, mortgage documents, financial records. I photographed everything, took the originals. As I worked, I could hear them getting ready. Their work in my house, using my space, my resources, my wife, while planning to steal everything. I thought about all those calls from Paula, always about money, always with that edge of accusation like I owed her something. The missed birthday when she was 9, the school play I'd canceled on. She'd been collecting grievances like interest, letting them compound until she felt entitled to everything, and I'd enabled it. Every time I'd sent money instead of coming home, I taught her she could have whatever she wanted if she made me feel guilty enough. Education was over, time for the final exam. Paula's car started, then Ian's. I waited 20 minutes, then went upstairs. In the master bedroom, I found a folder labeled Financial Planning. Inside, drafts of a power of attorney document, Wilma's name, signature line blank, a deed transfer form also blank, notes in Paula's handwriting, Mom signs POA by October, file deed transfer by December. Dad won't contest from Canada. They'd planned everything. Timeline, documents, cover story. They'd assumed I'd be too absent, too guilty, too conflict avoidant to fight back. I photographed every page, put everything back exactly as found, and left. In my car, I called Gregory. We need to meet today. I've got proof of intent to commit fraud, evidence of theft, and a witness. I'll clear this afternoon. Harry, are you okay? I looked at my house in the rear view, my design, my investment, my home. I'm better than okay. I finally know exactly what I'm dealing with, and I know exactly how to fix it. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time to dismantle their kingdom piece by piece. Legal, methodical, and absolutely devastating. I started the engine. See you at 2 now why. As I drove away, I felt the last shock falling away, replaced by something colder and more focused. Paula thought she was playing me. She had no idea she'd just walked into a trap of her own design. The game was about to change, and this time, I was holding all the blueprints. Gregory called me back 2 days later, September 21st. Harry, I have someone you need to meet. His name is Marcus Chen, private investigator. Former FBI, specializes in financial fraud. If Paula and Ian are planning something, he'll find it. We met at a diner in Beaverton, neutral territory. Marcus was younger than I expected, maybe 45, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. He listened to my story without interrupting, taking notes on a tablet. You want me to check their financial activity? He asked when I finished. Everything. Bank accounts, credit cards, consultations with lawyers or notaries. Paula left her email logged in on my computer at the house. I need to know what she's planning. Marcus nodded. Give me 3 days. He called on the morning of the 24th. You need to sit down for this. I was already sitting in the hotel room that had become my temporary home. Tell me. They consulted with a notary named Thomas Green on September 10th, asked about power of attorney documents and how to transfer property ownership. Green apparently told them they'd need your wife's signature on a POA, giving them authority over the property. The coffee in my hand went cold. Did they get it? Not yet. But your daughter sent emails to a friend discussing the plan. I'm sending you screenshots now. Harry, some of this is pretty ugly. My phone buzzed. I opened the first image, Paula's words in her own typing, finally getting rid of the old man for good. Mom's easy to manipulate. Just need to wait for the right moment. Dad's in Canada so much. He'll never know what happened until it's too late. By the time he figures it out, we'll own the house and he can't do anything. The next email dated September 15th, the day I came home. Dad showed up unexpectedly tonight. Had to kick him out, LOL. Mom's too scared to tell him anything. Just need to keep pressure on her. Get those signatures. File the transfer by December. Free house worth $2 million. Here we come. I read them twice. 3 times. My daughter. My own daughter plotting to steal my home. Laughing about it with friends. There's more, Marcus said. They've been selling your possessions. I tracked down 3 transactions. Vintage architectural tools sold to a collector in Seattle for $5,200. A set of first edition architecture books to a dealer in Portland for $2,800. Total so far $8,000. I have receipts showing Ian's name. That's theft. Yes, it is. Felony theft actually over $1,000. Combined with the fraud attempt, you have serious criminal charges if you want to pursue them. I thought about Paula as a little girl, maybe 7, bringing me drawings she'd made. Daddy, I designed a house for us, she'd said, proud of her crooked lines and impossible proportions. I'd hung it on my office wall, kept it there for years. When had that little girl become this person? What else? I asked Marcus. They're planning to pressure your wife into signing documents claiming she gave them permission to live there permanently. Essentially, a fake lease backdated to July. If they can get that and the POA, they have a path to ownership, especially if you're out of the country and can't contest it immediately. The scope of it hit me. This wasn't opportunistic. This was premeditated fraud. They'd planned this for months, waiting for the perfect moment, using my absences, Wilma's vulnerability, every weakness in our family structure. Send me everything, I said. Every email, every transaction record, every piece of evidence, already done. Check your inbox, Harry. What are you going to do? I'm going to protect my wife, and I'm going to make sure they understand exactly what they tried to steal. After hanging up, I sat with the evidence for an hour, reading the emails again and again, seeing my daughter's casual cruelty, her assumption that she deserved this, that I owed her a $2 million house because I'd worked too much when she was young. Maybe I had. Maybe I'd made mistakes as a father. But this wasn't justice for a neglected childhood. This was calculated theft, wrapped in entitlement. I forwarded everything to Gregory, then called Wilma. Are you sitting down? Harry, what's wrong? I told her everything. The emails, the sales, the plan to forge documents. She was silent for a long time. I knew something was wrong, she finally said, her voice small. But I didn't think our own daughter. She's not going to get away with it. I promise you that. But Wilma, I need you to be strong for what comes next. Can you do that? What are we going to do? We're going to take our house back, and we're going to do it legally, methodically, and in a way they'll never forget. That evening, I drove past the house, lights on in every room, my Italian sofa visible through the front window. Ian sprawled across it with a game controller. Paula's car in the driveway parked where I used to park. They looked comfortable, settled, like they owned the place. They had no idea the walls were about to come down around them. September 25th, Gregory's office again, but this time the mood was different. We weren't gathering information anymore. We were planning war. Let's review what we have, Gregory said, spreading documents across his conference table. Emails proving intent to commit fraud, financial records showing $8,000 in theft, witness testimony from your neighbor about their false claims of ownership. Photographs documenting the state of your house and Wilma's living conditions, plus the fact that they're trespassers with no legal right to be there. What are my options? Standard eviction takes 60 to 90 days in Oregon. File the paperwork, serve notice, wait for court date, get judgment, wait for sheriff to enforce. Too slow. It gives them time to pressure Wilma or destroy evidence. Too slow, I agreed. What else? Gregory leaned back. You're an architect, Harry. You know building codes better than most inspectors. What if the house had serious safety violations? I saw where he was going immediately. Ian's electrical setup in my office is a legitimate fire hazard. 4 power strips daisy-chained on a 60-year-old circuit, and Paula removed a wall without permits or inspection. If the city inspector red tags the house as unsafe, everyone has to vacate immediately until repairs are made. No court process, no delays. The building department has authority to clear a property for safety reasons. How fast can that happen? If you file a complaint tomorrow, inspection within 3 days. If they find violations, they can order immediate evacuation. 14 days, maximum to clear the property and begin repairs. I thought about it. The electrical work was genuinely dangerous. The wall removal, while cosmetic, had been done without permits. I wasn't fabricating problems, just documenting real violations that Paula and Ian had created. Do it, I said. File the safety complaint. But I also want the formal eviction process started. 2 tracks, belt and suspenders, smart, and the theft charges. File those too. Police report, criminal complaint, the works. I want Ian on record as a thief. Gregory made notes. This is going to get ugly, Harry. Paula will fight back. She'll try to manipulate Wilma. Maybe you too. She'll cry. She'll blame you. She'll make you the villain. Are you prepared for that? I thought about the emails, finally getting rid of the old man for good, laughing about manipulating her own mother. I'm prepared, I said. There's one more thing we should consider. Gregory pulled out another file. After the eviction, you could file a civil suit for emotional distress, Wilma's documented psychological abuse, the systematic humiliation, being forced to live like a servant in her own home. A jury would sympathize. How much are we talking? $50,000, maybe more. But I'd recommend settling for less to avoid trial. Say $30,000 paid out over time. It puts them in debt to you, creates ongoing consequences, and compensates Wilma for what she endured. Do it. All of it. Safety complaint, eviction, theft charges, and prepare the civil suit. Gregory smiled grimly. You know what you're creating here. A perfect storm. They'll be hit from 4 directions at once. City building department, criminal court, civil court, and eviction proceedings. They won't know where to focus their defense. Good. They planned to steal my house while I was working. Time to show them what happens when an architect actually plans something. We spent the next 2 hours working through details, filing timelines, documentation requirements, witness coordination. Gregory would handle the legal paperwork. I would handle the building inspection complaint using my professional credentials to lend weight to the safety concerns. By 6 p.m., we had a complete strategy. Phase 1, building inspection, red tag, forcing immediate evacuation. Phase 2, criminal charges for theft. Phase 3, formal eviction proceedings. Phase 4, civil lawsuit for damages. When do we start? Gregory asked. Tomorrow morning. I'll file the building safety complaint at 9 a.m. You file everything else simultaneously. Hit them all at once before they know what's happening. Harry, once we start this, there's no going back. You're effectively going to war with your daughter. I looked at the emails on my phone. Paula's words. Mom's too scared to tell him anything. She went to war with me first, I said. She just didn't expect me to fight back. That night, I called Wilma one more time. Tomorrow, it starts. Are you ready? What if she hates me? Wilma's voice cracked. What if I lose my daughter? Wilma, look at what she's done. She's already lost herself. This isn't about punishment. It's about stopping her before she destroys you completely. Silence. Then, okay, do it. Take our house back. I hung up and looked at my notes. Every step planned, every contingency considered. 40 years of designing structures had taught me one critical lesson. A building is only as strong as its foundation. Paula and Ian had built their scheme on lies, manipulation, and assumed weakness. Time to show them what happens when the foundation cracks. Tomorrow, the first hammer would fall, and by the time they understood what was happening, it would be too late to stop it. I saved all my files, backed everything up to the cloud, and finally let myself feel it. Not anger anymore. Something colder, more focused. Justice has a structure too, and I just finished the blueprints. Was September 26th, 9 a.m. I walked into the Lake Oswego building department with a thick folder under my arm and 30 years of professional credibility behind me. The receptionist recognized me immediately. Mr. Parker, we haven't seen you in months. How's retirement? Complicated, I said, managing a smile. I need to file a building safety complaint. Is Vivian Kelly available? Vivian Kelly, the city's chief building inspector, was someone I'd worked with on dozens of projects over the years. She was thorough, fair, and absolutely uncompromising when it came to code violations. Perfect for what I needed. She came out to meet me within minutes. Harry, this is unexpected. What's going on? I need to show you something at my house. Unauthorized electrical work and structural modifications, potential safety hazards. Her expression shifted immediately to professional concern. When were these done? Recently, without permits, without inspection. I just discovered them when I returned from a project in Vancouver. Not technically a lie, just not the whole truth. Let me grab my equipment. We can go now if you're available. 20 minutes later, we stood in my driveway. Paula's car was gone, at work. Ian's was still there, which meant he was probably upstairs gaming or sleeping. Wilma let us in through the back door, her hands shaking as she turned the key. Mrs. Parker, Vivian said gently, noticing Wilma's nervousness. Are you all right? She's been under stress, I said quickly. It's been a difficult few weeks. I led Vivian to my office first. The electrical disaster was immediately apparent. Power strips daisy-chained together, cables running everywhere. The circuit breaker box showing clear signs of overload. Vivian pulled out her tablet and started taking photos. This is a serious fire hazard. How long has this been like this? At least 6 weeks, maybe longer. She tested the outlets, checked the breaker panel, documented everything. Her face grew more concerned with each discovery. Harry, you have at least 4 major code violations here. Overloaded circuits, improper wiring, non-compliant power distribution. This house could catch fire at any moment. There's more, I said, leading her to what used to be my study. The wall Paula had removed was obvious. No permit notice, no engineering approval, just a gaping space where a wall should be. Was this load-bearing? Vivian asked. No, thank heavens. But it was removed without permits, without inspection, without proper disposal of materials. Complete violation of city ordinances. She was typing rapidly on her tablet. Who authorized these modifications? No one authorized them. They were done without my knowledge or consent. Vivian looked at me carefully. Harry, what's really going on here? My daughter and her husband have been living here. They made these changes without permission. I only discovered them recently. Understanding dawned in her eyes. I see. Well, regardless of the family situation, these violations are serious. I'm going to have to issue a red tag. A red tag meant the house was unsafe for occupancy. Exactly what I needed. We went through the rest of the house. Vivian documented everything with professional precision. When we finished, she pulled out the official forms. Mr. Parker, I'm issuing an immediate notice of unsafe conditions under Lake Oswego Municipal Code, Section 158.840. This property must be vacated within 14 days to allow for necessary repairs and reinspection. Occupancy is prohibited until all violations are corrected and approved. She handed me the formal notice. Orange paper, official seal, legal weight. This needs to be posted prominently on the property and delivered to all current occupants. I understand. Thank you, Vivian. Harry, she said quietly as we walked back to her car. I've known you a long time. Whatever's happening here, I hope you work it out. But safety comes first. Always has, I said. After she left, Wilma and I taped the notice to the front door. Big orange, impossible to miss. Then we left through the back and drove to a coffee shop 2 blocks away to wait. Ian came outside 40 minutes later. I watched from the parking lot as he saw the notice, read it, then immediately pulled out his phone. His face went from confusion to anger to panic in about 30 seconds. Paula arrived home an hour later. Even from a distance, I could see her fury. She ripped the notice off the door, crumpled it, then apparently realized that wouldn't help. She smoothed it back out, took a photo with her phone. My phone buzzed. Paula calling. I let it go to voicemail. She called 3 more times. On the 4th, I answered. What did you do? She screamed. No greeting, no pretense. I didn't do anything, Paula. The city inspector found code violations at the house. You reported us. You did this on purpose. I reported unsafe conditions in my house. The inspector made her own determination based on the evidence. We have 2 weeks to move. Where are we supposed to go? That's not my problem. You should have thought about that before making unauthorized modifications to my property. This is harassment. I'm calling my lawyer. You do that. Have them read the building code first. I hung up. Wilma was staring at me. She sounded really angry. Good. Let her be angry. Anger is better than complacency. My phone buzzed again. Text from Paula. You're going to regret this, old man. We have rights. We've been living here for months. You can't just kick us out. I showed it to Wilma. She still doesn't understand. She thinks this is about eviction rights. She has no idea what's really coming. What is coming? Wilma asked. Everything, I said. This is just the first hammer. The next 3 days were quiet. Too quiet. Paula and Ian didn't call, didn't text, didn't confront us. That worried me more than screaming would have. On September 30th, Gregory called. Harry, Paula hired an attorney, Dennis Kowski, small-time guy from Gresham. He filed a motion to contest the building red tag. On what grounds? Claims the inspection was biased, that you manipulated the process. He's asking for a second inspection and temporary stay on the evacuation order. Will it work? Unlikely. The violations are real and documented, but it'll buy them a few days. More importantly, he sent me a letter claiming Wilma verbally agreed to let them live there permanently. Implied lease agreement. That's absurd. It's desperate, and desperation makes people dangerous. That afternoon, Wilma called, panicked. "Harry, they're here. Paula and Ian. They're saying I need to sign something." "Don't sign anything." "I'm calling the police." "Where are you?" "At the house, getting my things. They must have been watching. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Do not sign anything." I called Gregory and 911 simultaneously, then drove faster than I should have. I found them in the kitchen. Paula had papers spread on the table. Wilma sat looking terrified. Ian stood behind her chair, hands on the back, not touching, but the threat was clear. "Get away from my wife." Ian straightened but didn't move. "We're just talking." "No. You're coercing her into signing a fraudulent document. That ends now." Paula stood. "This isn't fraudulent. Mom agreed we could stay here. This makes it official." I picked up the papers. A backdated lease agreement claiming Wilma had rented them the house starting in July for $1 monthly 5-year term. "This is fake. She's agreeing now, aren't you, Mom?" Paula's voice had that manipulative edge. "You want to help your daughter, don't you?" Wilma's eyes filled with tears. "Stop. Wilma, go wait in my car." "She's not going anywhere until—" Ian started. The doorbell rang. I smiled. That would be the police. Ian's face went pale. I let in Officer Martinez and Gregory Walsh with his briefcase. "Officers," I said calmly, "these two are attempting to coerce my wife into signing a fraudulent lease for property they don't own and have no legal right to occupy." Gregory stepped forward, pulling out papers. "I'm Gregory Walsh, Mr. Parker's attorney. I have documentation showing Paula Torres and Ian Taus are unlawful occupants with no lease, verbal or otherwise. They're under city order to vacate within 14 days. This document is an attempt to create false evidence." Martinez looked at Paula and Ian. "Is this true?" "It's a family dispute," Paula said, voice suddenly sweet. "My father is trying to evict us over a misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding." I pulled out my phone, opened the email screenshots. This is an email from Paula dated September 15th, discussing her plan to get rid of the old man and force my wife to sign ownership documents. I also have evidence they've stolen and sold approximately $8,000 of my property. Martinez read, his expression hardening. "Additionally," Gregory said, handing over papers, "I'm serving formal eviction notice effective immediately, and this is a criminal complaint for theft filed with receipts and witness statements." Ian found his voice. "You can't prove we sold anything. I have receipts with your name from 2 Portland dealers, dated and signed. Vintage architectural instruments valued over $5,000. First edition books worth $3,000. That's felony theft." Paula's face crumbled. "Daddy, please. We can work this out. We could have worked it out before you tried to steal my house. Before you treated your mother like a servant. Before you planned fraud. I'm your daughter. You were my daughter. Now you're someone who committed crimes against my family." The manipulation shifted. Paula started crying. Real tears. "I'm sorry. I was desperate. You were never here. You never cared. I remember every day I worked to build the firm that paid for your college, every client meeting that put food on our table, every late night designing buildings so you could have a house. Now I know what you think I owe you for it. The debt is paid." Martinez cleared his throat. "Mr. Taus, Miss Taus, I need you to come to the station to answer questions about the theft allegations." Paula looked at me one last time, mascara running. "You'll regret this." "No," I said quietly. "You'll regret underestimating me." They left with Martinez. Gregory stayed, checking on Wilma. "Are you okay?" She nodded, wiping her eyes. I almost signed it. If Harry hadn't come, but he did. And now they know he's not going away. Gregory looked at me. That was quite effective. Every word was true. I know. That's what made it work. The battle for the house had moved from the living room to the station house, but I knew the hardest part was yet to come. I had broken the structure of their plan, but now I had to rebuild the life they had tried to destroy. October 15th arrived with the gray, heavy chill of a Portland autumn. I sat in the Multnomah County Small Claims Court at 9 a.m., watching the rain streak the high windows. Judge Patricia Reeves presided, a woman with iron gray hair and eyes that seemed to weigh the truth of every word spoken in her presence. Ian sat across from us, looking diminished in a suit that didn't quite fit, flanked by Dennis Kowski. Paula was noticeably absent, having chosen to distance herself from a case that featured her husband's signature on every incriminating document. Gregory and I had prepared our evidence with the same meticulous attention to detail I used for a skyscraper's foundation. When the judge called our case, I stood up, feeling the weight of the last few weeks behind me. "Mr. Parker," Judge Reeves said, "you are claiming theft of property valued at $8,000. "Yes, Your Honor," I replied, my voice steady. These were vintage architectural instruments and first edition books, items I had collected over a 40-year career, sold without my knowledge or consent while I was away on business. Gregory handed up our evidence binder. It was a masterpiece of documentation. Photos of the empty shelves, receipts from the dealers in Seattle and Portland, bank records showing the deposits into Ian's account, and security footage of him carrying the boxes. The courtroom was silent as the judge flipped through the pages. "Mr. Taus," she said, her voice dropping an octave, "these receipts have your signature." "I was just selling them for my father-in-law," Ian said, his voice cracking as he looked everywhere but at the bench. "He asked me to do it while he was in Canada." It was a verbal agreement. "Mr. Parker, did you authorize this?" the judge asked. "Absolutely not," I said. "I didn't even know they were gone until I found my office had been stripped." Judge Reeves looked back at Ian. "Do you have any documentation of this agreement? Texts? Emails?" Kowski tried to intervene, calling it a weaponized family dispute, but the judge cut him off with a sharp look. Ian whispered a soft no. "This appears to be straightforward theft," the judge concluded, her pen scratching loudly across the paper. The judgment was entered 20 minutes later. Ian was ordered to pay $8,000 in restitution plus $2,500 in court costs. We agreed to a payment plan of $500 monthly for 21 months. Ian's face turned a deep bruised purple as the reality of the debt set in. But Gregory wasn't finished. "Your Honor," he said, standing tall, "my client wishes to file a civil complaint for emotional distress and elder abuse against both defendants." He handed up a second file containing medical records from Wilma's doctor, Dr. Simmons, documenting her severe anxiety and depression. He included the photos of her living in the maid's room and the emails where Paula plotted to get rid of the old man. "This requires a separate hearing," Judge Reeves said, her expression softening only slightly. "But Mr. Kowski, I suggest settlement negotiations. The evidence suggests psychological abuse well beyond a simple property dispute." As we walked out of the courtroom, Gregory leaned in. "The eviction is final tomorrow, October 16th. They have to be out." And Kowski called this morning. "Paula wants to settle the emotional distress case." "How much?" I asked. "We asked for $50,000, Gregory said. They offered $5. "No," I said. "They came back with 15, he continued. "Still no. I want $30,000 paid over 5 years, non-negotiable. If they miss a single payment, the full amount becomes due immediately." Every month for the next several years, they would be reminded of exactly what they tried to do to us. On October 19th, the finality of the situation hit the pavement of Lake Oswego. The sheriff arrived to enforce the eviction. I stayed away, choosing to spend the afternoon with Wilma at a quiet park, but Gregory kept my phone buzzing with updates. "They're demanding more time," one text read. "Sheriff says no." "Paula is crying." Another came 10 minutes later. Ian threw a chair. "Sheriff is not amused. They're packing. It's done. House is clear." That evening, Wilma and I stood in our driveway for the first time in over a month. The orange red tag was still taped to the front door, a stark reminder of the safety violations that had helped clear the way. "It doesn't feel the same," Wilma said quietly, her hand trembling in mine. "No," I said, "but it's ours again." Inside, the house smelled of stale pizza and neglect. Garbage bags were piled in the hallway, and the walls were marred with holes where Paula had torn down our pictures to hang her own. The Italian sofa had a permanent beer ring on the leather. "It's going to take work," I said, looking at the mess. Everything worth having takes work, Wilma replied. She looked at me, her eyes clearer than I had seen them in weeks. We should have done the work before, on us. I know, I said, the guilt finally finding its place. I was gone too much. I was too passive. We both made mistakes, Harry, she said, sitting on the edge of the damaged sofa. But we're fixing them now. Over the next week, I became the architect of my own recovery. I officially retired from consulting, choosing to spend my days with a hammer and a paintbrush instead of blueprints and client meetings. I rewired the office by October 23rd and finished the wall repairs by the 25th. I repainted the rooms, replaced the stained carpets, and sent the sofa out for professional restoration. Wilma started seeing Dr. Simmons twice a week for therapy. I could see the changes, small at first, then more pronounced. She stood straighter. She spoke her mind without looking toward the door. She laughed at a joke Pete Anderson told over the fence. We were healing. Slowly, expensively, and painfully. But we were healing. 2 days later, Dennis Kowski sent over the signed settlement papers. Paula and Ian agreed to the $30,000 settlement over 60 months, paying $500 a month starting November 1st. Combined with the theft restitution, they would be sending us $1,000 every month for the next 2.5 years. It was a debt of character more than currency. Every time they signed those checks, they would have to face the truth of their own greed. October 28th was a crisp afternoon, the air smelling of fallen leaves and the fresh paint still drying in my office. The house was almost back to itself. The Italian sofa had been returned, looking as good as new, though I knew I would always see the ghost of that beer ring. I was in the kitchen fixing a cabinet door when the doorbell rang at 3:47 p.m. Wilma was at her therapy session. I looked through the window and saw Paula's car in the driveway. I took my time, wiping the grease from my hands and letting the bell echo through the house before I finally opened the door. Paula stood on the porch in a black dress, her makeup perfectly applied, the classic crying outfit designed to evoke maximum sympathy. "Daddy," she said, her voice small and fragile. "Can we talk?" "No," I said. "Please, just 5 minutes. I need to explain." "There is nothing to explain," I told her, my voice as hard as the granite countertops behind me. "You tried to steal my house. You abused your mother. You sold my property. The courts have judged. We are done. I made mistakes, but I'm your daughter," she cried. "You can't just abandon me." The irony was thick enough to choke on. "I can't abandon you," I asked. That's an interesting perspective from someone who told her friends she was getting rid of the old man for good. Her face flushed a deep red. "You read my private emails. You left them open on my computer, in my house, while you were trying to steal it," I reminded her. "I was desperate," she screamed, the mask of the victim finally cracking. "We had nowhere to go. You had jobs. You had your own apartment," I said. "You chose to stop paying rent and move into my house because you felt entitled to it. Because you were never here," she shrieked. "Always working, never caring about Mom or me." "I work to provide for this family," I said, feeling a strange sense of calm. "I paid for your college, your car, your wedding. When you asked for money in July, I sent $3,000. In August, I sent $2,000. No questions asked. I regret the distance between us, Paula, but regret doesn't make me owe you a $2 million house." She laughed, a bitter, sharp sound. "So that's it? You're just cutting me off?" "You cut yourself off when you committed fraud," I said. "I have the documents you prepared to force your mother to sign. I have the emails. I have everything." She went silent, her eyes filled with cold calculation. "What do you want? To punish me forever?" "I want you to understand what you did," I said. "I understand perfectly," she spat. "You care more about this house than your own daughter." "No," I said. "I care more about justice than enabling someone who has become unrecognizable. You'll get 60 chances to think about it, one for every month you make those payments." She turned to leave, then stopped. One last attempt at manipulation. "Mom will forgive me. She always does." "Maybe," I said. "That's her choice. But you won't use her to get to me again. Those days are over." Paula stared at me, her mouth hanging open as the finality of it hit her. She turned and walked to her car, her movements rigid with a fury she couldn't hide. I watched her drive away. Then I closed the door and locked it. I turned around to find Wilma standing in the hallway. She had come in through the back door and heard everything. "Was that too harsh?" she asked, sitting on the sofa. "No," I said. "It was honest." "She's still our daughter," Wilma whispered. "She is," I agreed. "And if she wants to rebuild that relationship someday, the door isn't locked forever. But she has to be the one to change. We can't do it for her." Wilma nodded slowly. "I've spent 38 years making excuses for her," she said. "Dr. Simmons says I need boundaries. That love without boundaries isn't love. It's enabling. I'm done with that." We sat together in the quiet of the house we had built. The afternoon light poured through the windows, warm and golden, illuminating the home that was finally ours again. Outside, the world continued on, indifferent to our struggle. "Are we going to be okay?" Wilma asked. "I don't know," I said, taking her hand. "But we're going to try. That's all we can do." After 43 years of marriage and 6 weeks of nightmare, we just sat there and breathed. Justice had been served. The house was ours. The debt was being paid. But the real work, the work of rebuilding our marriage and our lives, was just beginning. And this time, I wouldn't be absent. I wouldn't be hiding in Vancouver or Seattle or Canada. This time, I would be present. I had spent my life learning that a house is just a structure of wood, stone, and glass. But a home? A home requires a foundation of truth, constant maintenance, and a lot of care. The light continued to pour through the windows, and for the first time in months, as Wilma's hand tightened on mine, I felt something like peace. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.